I heard the knock before I saw the silhouette. 3 sharp raps against the rotting wood of our apartment door, each one colder than the last. I froze in the kitchen, my fingers trembling around the chipped ceramic cup I'd just poured coffee into, stale and bitter. My mother, as usual, was nowhere to be seen. She'd probably slipped out the back or locked herself in her bedroom, pretending none of this existed. But I knew exactly what was waiting on the other side of that door. The debt collectors. Or worse. I wasn't a child anymore. I hadn't been for a long time. I set the cup down, wiped my hands on my jeans, and walked slowly toward the door. Another knock, this time louder. Then a voice. Smooth, low, dangerous. Open the door, Ivy. She knew my name. That stopped me for a moment. I blinked. My name had never sounded like that before, like velvet laced with steel. I turned the lock. The door creaked open. And there she was. Tall. Imposing. Dressed in a fitted black coat that made her look like she'd just stepped out of a storm. Her black hair was slicked back from her face, sharp jawline gleaming under the hallway light, lips painted the color of dried blood. Eyes that didn't blink. I knew instantly. This wasn't one of the usual men who came to threaten and shout and wave papers in our faces. This was something else. Someone else. "Where's your mother?" she asked, voice calm, deadly. I swallowed. Not here. Pity. She took a step inside, uninvited. Her presence filled the room. She glanced around at the peeling wallpaper, the second-hand furniture, the smell of stale smoke and hopelessness. "I gave her 2 months," she said, walking slowly toward the living room. Hey, if you're enjoying this story, go ahead and drop a like to help us grow
2 months to
even
repay
more.
What she
And let me know
owes.
in the comments.
I assume
on a
she
scale
hasn't.
from 0 to 10.
No.
What
I
score would
whispered.
you give this
Didn't
story
think
so
so.
far? Your
She
feedback
turned back to
makes
me then,
all the difference.
finally
Meeting my gaze fully. Her eyes were dark, unreadable, and yet I couldn't look away. "Do you know who I am?" I shook my head. "My name is Alessia Romano," she said. "And your mother owes me $47,000. My knees almost gave out. I'd known it was a lot, but hearing it, $47,000, hit me like a punch to the chest. We don't have that kind of money. Obviously." Alessia's mouth curved into something between a smile and a snarl. "So, I'm taking something else." My breath caught. "What?" She walked closer. "You." "Me? Your mother offered you." I blinked. She what? "Offered you in exchange for time. As collateral." She signed papers. She reached into her coat and pulled out a folded document, dropping it onto the counter. I stared at it. My mother's signature was scrawled at the bottom. My name written in clear block letters. I backed away slowly. "You can't just take me." "I can. And I am." Her eyes didn't waver. "You'll come with me. Work for me. Until the debt is cleared." "What kind of work?" I hated how small my voice sounded. "Whatever I say." My heart was beating so loudly I couldn't hear anything else. I stared at her, trying to find any trace of humanity in that flawless face, but there was nothing. Nothing but cold, calculated control. And yet something in my stomach twisted. Not entirely out of fear. There was something else about her, something magnetic, impossible. A strange, terrifying pull. "If I say no?" I asked. Alessia's smile was slow. "Then I collect the debt in blood." She said it so simply, like it wasn't a threat, but a fact. "Your mother's. Maybe yours. Maybe both." I felt the weight of the walls closing in. I looked at the paper again. My mother's signature. My name. Sold like furniture. I wanted to scream. I wanted to cry. But instead, I lifted my chin. "Fine," I said. "Take me?" For a moment, she looked almost surprised. Then pleased. She stepped aside, gesturing toward the hallway. "Pack a bag. 1 small suitcase. 5 minutes." I didn't move. "What if I run?" "You won't. How do you know?" Her voice dropped, low and certain. "Because you're curious." Damn her. She wasn't wrong. As much as I hated her, hated the situation, there was something about her I didn't understand. Something that made my skin heat, and my pulse race, and my stomach coil tight. I turned and went to pack. I didn't look back. The car was silent, the kind of silence that didn't invite conversation. The leather seats were cold beneath my legs, and the tinted windows turned the city into a blur of shadows and streetlights. Alessia sat beside me, one arm resting on the console, the other draped casually along the edge of the steering wheel, as if she hadn't just ripped me out of my life and claimed me like property. She hadn't said a word since we left. I kept stealing glances at her, trying to understand who, or what, she was beneath that calm, lethal exterior. She didn't look like a monster, but monsters never did. "Where are we going?" I asked eventually, my voice barely louder than the hum of the engine. "My estate," she answered without looking at me. "It's outside the city. Private. Secure." "Secure?" I echoed. "So I can't run?" Her lip twitched. "You can try, but you won't get far." "You don't know me." "I know enough." That same quiet confidence, like she always had the upper hand. I wanted to hate her for it. I wanted to scream. But I was too tired, too numb. "You said I'd work for you," I said, forcing myself to meet her gaze. "What does that mean?" Alessia finally turned her head to look at me. "It means you'll earn back your mother's debt. Every dollar. You'll live under my roof, follow my rules, and do what I tell you." I clenched my fists. "So, I'm your prisoner?" "No," she said simply. "You're my responsibility." The way she said it made something flicker in my chest, an emotion I didn't recognize. She wasn't shouting, threatening, or even gloating. She sounded resigned. Like this wasn't her first time doing something like this. Like she'd carried other broken things before. We drove in silence again. Miles passed. The city gave way to trees and winding roads, the lights fading behind us. I didn't ask more questions. I knew she'd only answer what she wanted to and nothing more. When we finally pulled up to a massive iron gate, I felt my stomach drop. It opened slowly, revealing a long driveway that curved through perfectly trimmed hedges and trees older than I was. The house at the end wasn't a house, it was a mansion. Grand, dark, and eerily quiet, with tall windows like watching eyes. A guard opened the car door for her. Alessia stepped out gracefully, then turned and waited. I hesitated, then followed. The marble steps felt like ice. Inside, everything was polished stone and expensive silence. A chandelier hung above us, glittering like a threat. "Follow me," she said, not looking back. I did. The halls were endless. Finally, she opened a heavy wooden door and gestured inside. "Your room." I stepped in. It was beautiful, which only made it worse. Too much. Too soft. A queen-sized bed, pale gold curtains, a vanity, a closet already filled. I turned slowly. "You were expecting me." "Of course." Alessia leaned in the doorway, arms crossed. "I plan ahead." I stared at her. "Why me?" She tilted her head. "Because your mother offered you." "That's not a real answer." "It's the only one you're getting tonight." Her voice softened slightly. "There are clothes in the closet. Bathrooms through that door. You'll start working tomorrow." "Rest." "Doing what?" "You'll see." She turned to leave, then paused. "Lock the door if you want, Ivy. But you won't need to." She left. I locked the door anyway. And then I slid down to the floor and finally let myself cry. Not just from fear or anger, but from the deep, overwhelming knowledge that nothing would ever be the same again. I cried until my chest ached, until my throat burned. But underneath all of it, underneath the betrayal, the confusion, the terror, was something far worse. A whisper I didn't want to hear. A part of me, buried deep, that wasn't just afraid of Alessia Romano. A part of me that was curious. Drawn. Drawn to her power, her calm, her danger. Drawn to the way she had looked at me in the kitchen. Like I mattered. Like I wasn't just a debt. but something else. And that terrified me more than anything. I woke up disoriented. For a second, I couldn't remember where I was. The bed beneath me was too soft, the sheets too clean. It didn't smell like home. It didn't smell like anything. Sterile. Cold. And then it came rushing back. The knock on the door. Alessia Romano. The debt. The drive. The contract with my name on it. I sat up slowly, my limbs heavy with sleep and dread. Sunlight filtered through the pale gold curtains, and for a moment, it felt almost peaceful. Almost. A soft knock at the door startled me. I stood, unsure whether to respond. Before I could decide, the door opened slightly. A woman in her 40s peeked in. She wore a neat uniform and carried a tray. "Miss Ivy," she said kindly. "Breakfast." I nodded. She entered, placed the tray on the vanity, and smiled faintly. "Miss Romano asked me to bring this up. She said to tell you she'll expect you downstairs in 1 hour." "For what?" I asked. The woman shrugged lightly. "Orientation." I wanted to roll my eyes, but I was too hungry. I sat and picked at the food, eggs, toast, fruit, and something that looked like homemade jam. My body gave in before my mind did. I ate, showered, dressed. The closet was full of clothes in my size, all neutral tones, black, gray, white. I chose the least intimidating thing I could find, a simple black shirt and jeans. When I finally stepped out of the room, I realized just how enormous the house was. I wandered down the hall, past quiet rooms and closed doors, until I heard voices. Following the sound, I found myself in a sunlit room with tall glass windows that overlooked a manicured garden. Alessia stood near the window, phone to her ear, her posture sharp and still. She turned as I entered. Her eyes flicked over me quickly, calculating, assessing. I could feel the weight of her gaze. She ended the call and slipped the phone into her jacket. "Good. You're punctual." "Didn't know I had a choice," I muttered. The corner of her mouth twitched. "You always have choices. Just not always good ones." "So what now?" "You teach me how to be your slave." I hated how my voice trembled at the end. Alessia raised an eyebrow. "You're not a slave. You're collateral. There's a difference." "That's supposed to make me feel better?" "No." She gestured toward the door. "Walk with me." I followed her into another corridor. The house was endless, hallways branching like a maze. "You'll work in the estate, run errands, handle tasks I assign. You'll also accompany me when I say so. You'll be trained in etiquette, discretion, and loyalty. In return, you'll have food, clothes, safety. And in time, your mother's debt will be erased." "And when it is?" I asked. "Then you're free to leave. Or not." I frowned. "What does that mean?" Alessia stopped walking and turned to face me. Her eyes burned into mine. "It means the world you're stepping into changes people. You might not want to go back." I opened my mouth to respond, but I didn't know what to say. "Come," she said, her voice softer now. "I want to show you something." We stepped into another room, one I hadn't expected. It was filled with books. Floor-to-ceiling shelves, leather-bound volumes, the smell of old paper and quiet. A fireplace in the corner. A small piano. It didn't feel like it belonged in the same house. "This is your space," Alessia said, "when you're not working." I turned slowly, confused. "Why are you showing me this?" "Because I know what it's like to feel like a pawn." Her voice was low. "I was one once. And I remember the difference between being owned and being seen." I looked at her. For the first time, really looked. There was something in her eyes now, something human. A crack in the armor. And it did something strange to me. Made my chest tighten. Made me want to ask questions I had no right to ask. "Why are you like this?" I whispered. "Why do you run a world like this?" Alessia smiled faintly, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Because power is the only thing that's never been taken from me." We stood there for a long moment. The silence between us wasn't sharp like before. It was heavy, thoughtful, charged. "What do you want from me, Alessia?" I asked finally. Her eyes dropped to my lips for half a second before meeting mine again. "Everything." but not all at once. And then she turned and walked out, leaving me alone with her words echoing in the silence, like a warning. Or a promise. I spent the next 3 days learning to survive in Alessia Romano's world. It wasn't loud or chaotic like I imagined a mafia operation would be. It was precise, controlled. Every corner of her estate was a machine in motion, guards rotating every 6 hours, cars entering and exiting through underground garages, phones ringing with information instead of noise. Alessia didn't shout. She didn't need to. One glance from her was enough to silence a room. I watched everything. I kept my head down, did what I was told, light chores at first, organizing books, shadowing her assistant during meetings, memorizing names and faces of people I didn't recognize but instinctively knew were dangerous. But Alessia? She didn't touch me. She didn't flirt or threaten. She didn't even speak to me unless she needed something. And somehow that was worse. Because I felt her. Everywhere. Watching me when I wasn't looking. Reading me like she was waiting for something to shift. I couldn't tell if I hated her or something else. And then came the night of the gala. I wasn't supposed to go. I knew that from the moment I overheard Alessia discussing it with her men. A fundraiser. A cover. Powerful people. Dangerous allies. I was too green, too fresh. But when I returned to my room that afternoon, a black dress was laid out on the bed. Long, sleek, backless. Next to it, a box. Inside, heels, jewelry, a thin silver necklace that shimmered like liquid under the light. I stared at it all for a long time before picking up the note left on the pillow. Be ready by 8. You'll be on my arm tonight. My stomach flipped. I almost ripped the dress in half. I almost said no, but I didn't. I bathed, did my makeup with shaking hands, pulled the dress over my body, and felt like I was stepping into someone else's skin. When I stepped out of my room at 7:59, Alessia was waiting. And when she looked up, something shifted in her eyes. Slowly, deliberately, she moved toward me, stopping just inches away. She reached out and adjusted a strand of my hair, her fingers brushing the side of my neck. You clean up well, she murmured. Don't touch me, I whispered, but it came out breathless. Alessia's mouth tilted. Noted. Her hand dropped. We didn't speak again until we were in the car. This time, a sleek black vehicle with a driver. I stared out the window, trying to keep my breathing calm. Why am I here? I finally asked. To be seen. As what? As mine. I turned to her sharply. I'm not yours. Aren't you, she said softly. Your mother sold you. I paid the price. You haven't paid anything, I snapped. You took me. You're just using me. If I wanted to use you, Ivy, you'd know. Her voice was silk and fire. I looked away. My reflection in the window didn't look like me anymore. When we arrived, the building loomed like a cathedral of money and power. Inside, it was worse. Champagne flutes. Laughter like knives. Eyes watching everything. Alessia placed a hand on the small of my back, bare skin, and I flinched. But I didn't move away. Smile, she said near my ear. Let them wonder who you are. What am I supposed to be? I hissed. A distraction? A weapon, she whispered back. Pretty things don't get noticed. They get underestimated. And that's when I realized this was her test. Her way of seeing if I would survive this world. Or drown in it. I lifted my chin and let her lead me into the lion's den. The night blurred. Men with sharp teeth in expensive suits. Women who laughed too hard and stared too long. Alessia introduced me only once. This is Ivy, she said. She belongs to me. No one questioned it. No one asked for more. And I hated that a part of me thrilled at the possessive way she said it. I drank champagne, smiled at people I didn't trust, stood close to her like I was part of her shadow. And when it was all over, when the last hand had been shaken and the last lie spoken, she led me back to the car in silence. My feet ached. My skin buzzed. I didn't speak. Neither did she. But when we reached the estate, something cracked. We stepped into the hallway. She turned to me. You handled yourself well, she said. Is that a compliment? It's a warning. Of what? Her eyes darkened. Of how easily you're adapting. I moved past her, heart pounding. But before I could get far, her voice stopped me. Do you want to know why I brought you tonight? I turned slowly. Why? Because I wanted to see what you'd become when I gave you power. I stared at her, and Alessia's smile was slow, deliberate. You wore it like a second skin. And then she walked away, leaving me standing there, shaken, furious, and undeniably drawn to the woman who'd turned my life into a game I didn't know I was ready to play. I avoided her for 2 days. It wasn't easy. Nothing in that house moved without her knowing. But I found corners she didn't frequent, empty halls between meetings, excuses to stay locked in the library or slip into the kitchens under the pretense of helping.
I needed space to think, to breathe.
Because the way she looked at me at the end of that night, I couldn't stop replaying it. That slow, knowing smile. That looked like I'd done something dangerous without realizing it. And worse, how I felt. How I came alive in that dress, on her arm, being seen, being watched. How her hand on my back lingered even after she let go. It terrified me.
So I ran.
But of course, you can't hide from someone who owns the place you're hiding in. I was in the garden when she found me. The sun was low, casting long golden lines across the gravel. I was on a stone bench, pretending to read but really just trying to silence the storm in my chest. You're hiding from me? Her voice came from behind me, low and unamused. I didn't turn around. Is it still hiding if you know exactly where I am? Alessia came into view, wearing all black again, tailored pants, a silk blouse, her hair loose today.
Softer.
But her eyes hadn't changed. You've been avoiding me. Maybe I needed a break from your tests. It wasn't a test, she said. It was a lesson. I closed the book slowly. You mean manipulation. I mean truth. She took a step closer. You played the part because it's in you. That fire, that edge. I saw it the night I took you. I wanted to see how deep it went. So you dressed me up, paraded me like your little toy. You weren't a toy, she interrupted, voice like a warning. You were a weapon. That's not better. It is if you're the one holding the blade. I stood, angry, shaking. You want to twist me into something I'm not. I want you to stop pretending you're something you're not, she said, stepping even closer. You think you're soft, innocent.
But I see the way you look at me.
The way you move when you're backed into a corner. You want control, Ivy. You crave it. Just like I do. I laughed bitterly. I didn't choose this. Didn't you? Alessia's eyes locked on mine. You could have run. Fought me. But you didn't. You came with me. You're still here. Because you left me no choice. There's always a choice. Her voice dropped. And every day, you choose to stay. The silence between us stretched taut, electric. I hated her. I wanted her. I didn't know where one ended, and the other began. What do you want from me? I asked. Her voice was like smoke. Honesty. From me? From yourself. Her gaze dropped, slow, deliberate, to my lips. Because the way you're looking at me right now doesn't feel like hate. My breath caught. She took one step closer. Close enough for me to feel the heat radiating from her skin. Say it, she murmured. Say you don't feel this. You're my captor, I whispered. You're the reason I'm here. And yet, Alessia said softly, you're not running. Her hand lifted, hesitated, and then brushed a strand of hair from my cheek. My body betrayed me. I didn't flinch. I leaned into the touch. Just slightly. Just enough. Her fingers trailed down my jaw, and I felt it like a live wire under my skin. You hate me, she said. And you want me. Both can be true. You think you know everything, I breathed. No, she said. But I know enough. Her mouth was inches from mine now. I should have pushed her away, screamed, slapped her. But I didn't. I waited. I let it happen. Her lips hovered, not quite touching. If I kissed you right now, she said, voice rough, you'd let me. I shook my head. No, lie, she whispered. And then she stepped back. Just like that, The air between us broke. I was cold where she'd stood. "I won't take what's not given," she said. "But don't pretend you haven't already offered it." I stared at her, shaking, my heart thudding so loud I could barely think. "Why are you doing this to me?" She looked tired for the first time. "Because I've never wanted someone who didn't already fear me. And you're the only thing in this house that doesn't belong to me." Then she turned and walked away. And I stood there, trembling, wanting her to come back, and hating myself for it. The line between survival and surrender blurred more with each passing day. After that night in the garden, Alessia gave me space, but it didn't feel like mercy. It felt strategic. She didn't look at me during meals, didn't ask for me during meetings, didn't speak to me unless necessary. And yet I could feel her everywhere. Her presence haunted the halls of that estate like perfume on the air, subtle and dangerous. She was restraint wrapped in silk and steel, and I hated how much I noticed her absence. I buried myself in tasks, training under her assistant, memorizing security protocols, learning how to anticipate Alessia's needs without asking. I told myself I was doing it for freedom, for the promise of my debt dissolving. But some nights, I caught myself standing in the doorway of the library, hoping she'd be there. She never was. Until one night, I walked in and found her sitting by the fire, one leg crossed over the other, a glass of something dark in her hand. Her shirt was unbuttoned at the collar, her hair loose again, and her eyes, those impossible eyes, met mine the second I stepped inside. "Couldn't sleep?" she asked. Her voice was calm, unreadable. I hesitated. "I didn't know you'd be here. And if you had, I might have come anyway." Her eyebrow lifted. "Brave. Or stupid?" I crossed the room slowly, drawn like a moth. "You decide." She watched me. "Why are you really here, Ivy?" I sat in the chair across from her. "I don't know anymore. That's dangerous. Everything here is dangerous." Alessia tilted her head. "You've changed. You made me." "I showed you what you were capable of," she corrected. "There's a difference." The fire cracked between us. Shadows danced across her face, softening the edges, making her look almost human. "When do you stop pretending?" I asked suddenly. Her lips parted slightly. "Pretending what?" "That you don't feel anything." The silence that followed wasn't empty, it was charged. Alessia looked down into her glass, then back at me. "Feeling makes you weak in this world. So, you taught yourself not to?" I learned the hard way. "What happened?"
I don't know why I asked.
I expected her to shut down, but she didn't. She stood and walked to the window, her back to me. "I loved someone once," she said quietly, "and it cost me everything." The honesty hit harder than any threat she'd ever made. "What happened to her?" Alessia was quiet for a moment. "She betrayed me, chose survival over loyalty. I don't blame her." "But you never forgave her. Would you?" I didn't answer. She turned to face me again. "You remind me of her." My chest tightened. "So, this is revenge?" "No," Alessia said. "This is inevitability." I stood. I don't know why. Maybe to leave. Maybe to get closer. My feet moved without thought. She watched me come toward her unmoving. When I stopped, inches from her, the air thickened. "You say I'm the only thing that doesn't belong to you here," I whispered. "But maybe I do." Her jaw tensed. "Don't say things you don't understand." "I understand enough." My voice shook, but I didn't back down. "You want control."
So do I.
Maybe that's why we're both losing it. Her hand came up slowly, almost reluctant. She touched my cheek like she didn't mean to, like her body betrayed her. Her fingers trailed down, slow, warm, aching. "This is a mistake," she murmured. "Then make it." I leaned in. Just a breath between us. My heart was racing. I felt her breath on my lips, could taste the hesitation, the ache. And then she kissed me. It wasn't gentle. It wasn't sweet. It was possession and desperation and fear all tangled into one unforgivable moment. Her hands gripped my waist, pulling me closer, and I let her. I pressed into her, matching her hunger, our bodies colliding like we'd both been waiting too long to pretend anymore. We broke apart just as suddenly, both of us breathing hard. Her eyes were wide, like she hadn't expected herself to give in. "This changes nothing," she said. "It changes everything," I whispered. She turned away. "Go."
Why?
"Because if you stay, I won't let you go." "Is that a threat?" "No," she said softly. "It's a promise." But I didn't move. I stood there, watching the most powerful woman I'd ever met look more vulnerable than she ever had. And I realized the shift was already happening, not just in her, in me. I wasn't afraid of Alessia Romano anymore. I was afraid of what I'd do to stay in her orbit. I didn't sleep that night, not even for a second. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, every nerve in my body still buzzing from the kiss, the heat of her hands on my waist, the force of it, the way she looked at me afterward, like she'd just opened a door she couldn't close. It wasn't about lust. Or maybe it was at first, but there was something else now. Something tangled and dangerous. Something that felt like falling. The next morning, Alessia was gone. Her assistant informed me she'd left the estate early for business in the city. No details, no timeline. Just a vague order. Stay where you are. Don't go out. I obeyed, but not because she told me to. I didn't want to leave. Not until I understood what was happening between us. Days passed. No word. I tried to stay busy, training, organizing, pretending I could still separate myself from this place. But I felt her absence like a wound. The house felt colder without her. The fire dimmer. The gravity off. And when I wasn't thinking about her, I was thinking about how I had let her kiss me. How I had kissed her back. How I'd wanted it. Still wanted it. The fourth night, I wandered outside for air. The estate grounds were empty, quiet except for the whisper of wind through the trees. I walked the garden path, the one she'd found me on the last time we fought. And suddenly I wasn't alone. Couldn't sleep again? Her voice, low and familiar, echoed behind me. I turned so fast my breath caught. There she was, dressed in black, rain still clinging to her coat, hair slick from the storm, eyes darker than the night itself. "You were gone," I said, too fast. "Business." "You didn't tell me." I didn't realize I had to. The wall was back up, the cold mask she wore so easily, but I could see the flicker beneath it. "You kissed me," I said. She didn't look away. "Yes." And then vanished. I needed space. So did I. "But you didn't see me disappearing." Alessia stepped closer. "You don't have an empire to run."
No.
"Just a life you own." Her jaw flexed. "I don't want to fight you, Ivy." "Then don't treat me like a pawn." "I never did." "Then what was that kiss?" She was in front of me now, close enough to touch. "It was a mistake," she said. But her eyes betrayed her. They dropped to my mouth again. "You didn't act like it was a mistake." "I shouldn't want you." "But you do." "Yes." The word was like fire between us. I felt it everywhere. "So, what are you going to do about it?" I whispered. She didn't answer. She just reached up, cupped my jaw, and kissed me again. Slower this time. More deliberate. As if she knew there was no turning back. I melted into it, my hands gripping the front of her coat, anchoring myself to her. Her arms wrapped around my waist, strong and sure, pulling me against her like I belonged there. And maybe I did. Maybe I always had. We didn't go further. We didn't need to. That kiss said everything. When we finally pulled apart, I was breathing hard, dizzy. Alessia rested her forehead against mine. "This complicates everything," she murmured. "I know. I can't protect you from this world, Ivy." "Then don't. Let me choose it." She looked at me like I'd just handed her a loaded gun and begged her to pull the trigger. "You're not afraid?" "Of you." I shook my head. "Not anymore." Alessia stared at me like she was memorizing me. "If you stay, I already did. Then you don't get to run when it gets ugly." "Good." I took her hand and pressed it to my heart, because I don't want to run. She kissed me again, softer this time, like a secret. And when she pulled away, She said something that made my stomach drop. You should get some sleep. Tomorrow, I'm taking you into my world for real. What does that mean? It means no more pretending. I didn't sleep that night either. But not because of fear. This time, it was anticipation. I was no longer just collateral. I was something else. Something more. And whatever tomorrow brought, I would face it on her side. The car was already waiting when I came downstairs the next morning. Black again, sleek and silent, with the same suited driver I'd seen a dozen times, but never heard speak. Alessia was by the front door, coat draped over her shoulders, her expression unreadable. She didn't kiss me. She didn't smile. But her eyes lingered on me like they did when no one was watching. And I knew this wasn't a day for affection. This was business. And today, I was stepping into her world, not as a captive, not as a decoration, but as something else. You don't speak unless I tell you to, she said the moment we slid into the back seat. You don't make eye contact with anyone unless I say. You stay 2 steps behind me. If I say move, you move. If I say smile, you smile. No questions. Understood. I nodded. Understood. She looked me over. A quick, sharp scan. I wore black slacks, a high-neck blouse, and a long dark coat. Something that felt like armor. My makeup was subtle. My hair pinned. Alessia had chosen the outfit. I had chosen the attitude. No fear. No softness. Not today. You look like you belong, she said. Do I? You will. The drive was long, winding back into the city, where the sky was heavier and the streets moved with a different kind of pulse. We pulled up to an old building with a wide staircase and tinted windows. It didn't look like much from the outside. But when we stepped in, I understood immediately. It was quiet, too quiet. No music, no chatter. Just clean floors, concrete walls, and tension humming beneath the surface. Men moved like ghosts through the halls, armed, aware. Every one of them paused when they saw her. Alessia didn't need to speak. Her presence said everything. Welcome to the real house, she said without looking at me. This is where things happen. We passed through locked doors, up a private elevator, down another hall that smelled like expensive leather and old money. Finally, she led me into a conference room. The moment the door opened, 5 men stood. Important men. Dangerous men. I felt it instantly, the weight of the room, the energy, power and threat in equal measure. Alessia nodded once. They sat. She did not. And neither did I. She began to speak, sharp, efficient. Names. Numbers. Territory lines. I understood nothing and everything all at once. These weren't just criminals. These were businessmen with blood on their hands and loyalty in their eyes. And every single one of them deferred to her. She wasn't just the boss. She was the boss. I stood behind her, silent, watching the way her jaw flexed when someone questioned her, the way her voice stayed level even when she was clearly issuing a threat. And then someone looked at me, a man at the end of the table. Older. Lean. Cold eyes. And who's this? He asked. Alessia didn't flinch. Mine. That word again. Possessive. Dangerous. And I saw it, the way the man's eyes flicked with amusement. New piece, he said, like I was a car. Or a drug. I didn't speak. But Alessia turned her head slowly, eyes locked on him. Careful, she said, voice like ice. You're speaking about something I value. Something, not someone. But somehow I knew she said it that way on purpose. The man backed down. The meeting continued. An hour later, we were back in the car. I finally exhaled. They looked at me like I was a trophy. You were, she said simply. A calculated display of control. And how did I do? You made them curious. That's enough. I stared out the window. Do you like it? She asked. The power? I thought for a moment. I liked that no one looked at you like they questioned you. They wouldn't dare. Why? Because they know what I'm capable of. I turned to her. And what's that? Alessia didn't smile. Whatever I have to be. We returned to the estate in silence. But I wasn't the same girl who left it that morning. Something had shifted. When we stepped inside, I pulled her by the wrist before she could walk away. Why me? I asked, voice low. Why did you pick me? Alessia looked at me for a long time. Because you didn't break, she said. Because you looked me in the eye and stayed standing. Because I saw something in you I hadn't seen in years. What? She stepped closer. Her hand came up, brushing my jaw. A future. The breath caught in my throat. With me? If you can survive it. She leaned in, mouth close to mine again. But I warn you, Ivy. Loving me doesn't come with safety. Only loyalty. I should have pulled away. Should have run. But instead, I said the only thing that felt real in that moment. Then teach me how to survive you. And for the first time since she walked into my life, she looked like she didn't know what to say. The next week blurred into something between war and seduction. Alessia didn't touch me again, not really, but every interaction between us crackled with the kind of tension that had weight, heat, gravity. She was training me, but not just for her world. She was watching to see if I would rise or disappear under the pressure of it. I didn't disappear. I studied every name she mentioned in passing, memorized the layout of the estate, learned how to fire a gun with her second-in-command, Marco, who said nothing unless spoken to, but looked at me differently after the third time. I didn't flinch from the recoil. I started to understand what power looked like from the inside. It wasn't flashy. It was silence that made people afraid to fill it. It was walking into a room and needing to say nothing because everyone already knew what would happen if they disrespected you. And Alessia, she didn't just wear power. She was it. And the more I watched her, the more I wanted to be something beside her. Not beneath her. Not behind her. Beside her. One night, after a long day of meetings and drills and endless hours of unspoken electricity, Alessia called me into her office. I expected another briefing, another cold directive. But she was standing by the window, back to me, a glass of bourbon in her hand.
Close the door, she said. I did.
What's going on? She didn't turn. There's a problem. What kind of problem? Your mother. The word hit me like a slap. I hadn't spoken to her in weeks. Had forced myself not to ask, not to care. What about her? Alessia finally turned, her expression unreadable. She's been making noise. Talking to the wrong people. Asking about your whereabouts.
About me.
I clenched my jaw. She's not worried. She's guilty. Doesn't matter. People are starting to wonder why I took you. Because she gave me to you. Yes, but that doesn't matter to them. The optics are different. They think I have a weakness now.
Me.
Yes. The word was sharp, clipped, like she hated admitting it. Then what are you going to do? I asked. I don't know yet. Alessia sat on the edge of her desk, looking at me in a way that made my stomach twist. There are things I can't protect you from if this gets out of control. I don't want protection. That's the problem, she said, and something cracked in her voice. You want me, and I don't know how to give myself to you without burning you alive. Then let me burn, I said. And I meant it. She stood then, slowly, walked toward me with that calm, dangerous elegance she always carried. But this time, she didn't stop in front of me like she usually did. She came closer, close enough for her breath to warm my cheek, close enough for her hands to rest on my hips, light but firm. If I touch you again, she whispered, it won't stop at a kiss. Then don't stop. Her eyes met mine, dark, conflicted, hungry. You're not afraid of what I am? I'm afraid of what I want, I whispered. And it's you. That was the moment everything shifted. She kissed me like the tension had finally cracked, like the storm had waited long enough. Her mouth was fire and ice, her hands threading through my hair, gripping, pulling. I moaned into it, giving in, letting her press me back against the door, her body hard and sure against mine. There was nothing soft about it. This wasn't romance. This was territory. We didn't make it to the bed. We didn't need to. Her office became the place we unraveled. My coat hit the floor. Her shirt followed. Every movement was desperation and control colliding. Every kiss a line crossed. Every gasp a surrender. When it was over, we stayed tangled in each other, on the rug, breathing hard, clothes scattered around us like broken promises. Alessia didn't speak for a long time. Neither did I. But when I turned to look at her, she was already watching me. Not with guilt, not with fear, but with something closer to awe. "You were never a debt," she said softly. "I know," I whispered. And I believed it. For the first time, I believed I was more than what my mother gave away. I was wanted, not owned, not used, chosen. "What happens now?" I asked. Alessia sat up slowly. "Now we make sure no one can use this, us against us."
How?
"By reminding them who they're dealing with." She looked at me then, long and slow. "You want it in, Ivy. Tomorrow, you'll prove you can stay." "What do I have to do?" "Meet the woman who wants me dead." Her voice didn't shake. Mine did. "And what happens if she tries something?" Alessia smiled, and it was nothing like softness. "Then you show her I'm not the only one she should fear." The next morning, I woke up in Alessia's bed. The silk sheets felt like temptation, like sin, and the space beside me was empty.
She was already gone.
But her scent still lingered, faint and intoxicating, and the way my body ached in quiet satisfaction was proof that last night hadn't been a dream. It had been war, a surrender, a shift neither of us could undo. But now, the real test had arrived. I dressed quickly, choosing black again, strong, clean lines, understated elegance. Alessia had taught me well. Confidence didn't shout. It whispered. I found her in the study, already on her second espresso, papers scattered in front of her, phone pressed to her ear. She glanced at me and gave a barely there nod, but there was something in her eyes. Something raw. She hadn't forgotten either. She ended the call and motioned for me to sit. "She'll be at the meeting," Alessia said.
Luciana Bellanti.
"She runs the southern ports, and she's been trying to undermine me for over a year." "And now she thinks she's found your weakness," I said quietly. Alessia looked at me, expression unreadable. "You." I didn't flinch. "Then let her." A flicker of something passed over her face.
Pride.
Or fear. Maybe both. "She'll try to rattle you," Alessia warned. "She'll say things designed to get under your skin. She'll treat you like you're nothing. You can't react. You can't defend me. You're just there to watch." "Understood." "I'm not a prop," I said. "No," she said, standing. "You're bait." My heart stuttered, but I didn't back down. The meeting was held in a private lounge near the port, neutral territory. A circular room with velvet walls, a low chandelier, and a single round table in the center, like something from a Roman tragedy. Every player had their place. And everyone looked when Alessia entered. I walked 2 steps behind her, silent, still, my eyes sweeping the room. Luciana sat at the far end, wine glass in hand, dark red lipstick perfectly applied, her gaze already locked on us. And when her eyes met mine, something shifted. She smiled.
Slowly.
Cruelly. "Well," Luciana said, rising. "Alessia Romano. And her little pet." Alessia didn't stop walking. Neither did I. She sat. I stood behind her, chin high, spine straight, heart pounding. "She's very pretty," Luciana continued. "I see now why you took her instead of money. Flesh is easier to control than numbers." Alessia didn't blink. "Are we here to talk business, or to measure your jealousy?" Luciana's eyes sparkled. "Oh, darling, I'm not jealous. I'm entertained." The men at the table exchanged tense glances, unsure where to look. I stayed still, letting the storm unfold. "Tell me, Ivy, is it?" Luciana asked, her voice like syrup. "Do you know how many people have died because of that woman you're so eager to please?" Alessia's hand twitched once on the table, but she said nothing. "Neither did I. She's a killer. A liar. She will throw you to the wolves the moment it serves her. You know that, don't you?" Still, I said nothing, but something in me boiled. Not from fear. From instinct. From the slow, rising fury of being underestimated. Luciana smiled wider. I'd be careful if I were you. Alessia Romano loves many things. None of them last. Alessia stood then. Her voice was ice. The only reason you're still speaking is because I haven't decided how useful you still are. Oh, Alessia, Luciana purred, sipping her wine. You can't silence everyone, especially not the ones who know what you truly are. They stared at each other for one long, volatile moment. Then Alessia turned and walked out. I followed. We didn't speak until we were in the car. She slammed the door, breathing hard. I told you not to react, she said through clenched teeth. I didn't. You wanted to. Yes, I said. I did. Silence. Then softer. You did well. I looked at her. She's dangerous. She's more than that. She's a cancer. She's been poisoning the lower territories, turning allies against me, offering quiet deals to chip away at my control. But now she's seen you. And what does that mean? Alessia's eyes met mine. It means she knows I'm not alone anymore. That made my stomach twist. And that's good. I asked. It's a liability, she said. But it's also a warning. I've been untouchable because I have nothing to lose. Now that's changed. I reached for her hand. She didn't pull away. I'm not your weakness, I said. She looked at me like I'd just said something holy. No, she whispered. You're the only thing that's ever made me strong enough to show one. The car was still moving, the city blurring by, but everything felt still, like that sentence had rearranged the air around us. I want to help, I said. You already are, she said, voice raw. But the moment you become a target, this stops being about debt. It becomes war. Then let it come. Alessia smiled. Not the cold kind. The real one. The kind I hadn't seen before. I don't deserve you, she said. No, I replied. But I choose you anyway. There was no ceremony. No slow lead-in. The next morning, war arrived with a knock at the gate and a bullet through the window of the south wing. It wasn't subtle. It wasn't symbolic. It was a message. Luciana had made her move. Alessia was already moving when I got downstairs. She was in full black, no makeup, hair tied back tight, gun holstered beneath her jacket. Her commands were sharp, rapid fire. Guards redeployed, vehicles relocated, all entrances secured. Marco followed close behind her, flanked by two more of her inner circle. I didn't ask for permission. I stood beside her. What do you need me to do? She didn't hesitate. Stay close. That's it. For now. I can handle more. And I'll give you more when I know you can survive it. I can. She looked at me, her eyes scanning mine. I believe you. But belief won't stop a bullet, Ivy. Neither will distance. That finally made her pause. Something flickered in her. She reached out, brushed her thumb along my cheek, just once. Then don't leave my side. That day, the estate turned into a war room. Phones rang nonstop. Messages arrived in encrypted bursts. Money moved. Weapons were counted. Alliances were tested. I watched Alessia shift into a different version of herself. Colder, sharper, unstoppable. Every word she spoke carried weight. Every movement meant something. She wasn't fighting to survive. She was fighting to maintain an empire. And I was part of it now. In the late afternoon, news arrived that made the whole room go silent. Luciana had intercepted one of Alessia's deliveries, guns bound for a secure drop in the north. She hadn't just stolen from Alessia. She'd broadcasted it, made sure the entire network knew it. The implication was clear. Alessia wasn't invincible anymore. Alessia paced for a moment, then stopped. Looked at me. Get dressed, she said. You're coming with me. Where? To remind her who she's dealing with. I didn't ask more. I ran to my room and changed, black again, tighter this time, sleeker. I tied my hair back like she did. When I met her by the car, she looked at me once, nodded, and said nothing. The drive was tense, quiet. Alessia's fingers drummed against her thigh, like she was holding back the urge to act before she should. We arrived at a private club Luciana owned, A glittering place full of mirrored walls and quiet shadows, where secrets moved like smoke. Guards tried to stop Alessia at the entrance. They didn't succeed. She walked through them like a blade, through silk. I followed. The music inside was low and pulsing. VIPs lined the booths, laughing, sipping cocktails laced with corruption. And at the center, in a booth lit by violet light, sat Luciana. Surrounded, smiling. She saw us the second we entered. Didn't even blink. Alessia, she purred, lounging like a cat. I thought you might come crawling. Alessia didn't speak. She moved forward. I stayed behind her, eyes sharp, breath steady. Luciana's gaze flicked to me. And you brought your little girl. How sweet. Alessia stopped at the edge of the table. You made your move. I did. And it was a good one, wasn't it? Alessia leaned down. I don't care about the guns. I don't care about the message. But you touched what's mine. Still pretending she matters? She's not pretend. Alessia's voice dropped, soft and deadly. She's the only thing keeping me from putting a bullet in your mouth right now. The room went still. Luciana's smile cracked, just barely. She won't last, she whispered. She's not built for this. Alessia stepped aside. Then say that to her face. All eyes shifted to me. The room swam. My pulse thundered. But I stepped forward, looked Luciana Belanti in the eye, and smiled. You're right, I said. I'm not built for this. A pause. But I'm choosing it anyway. And that makes me more dangerous than you'll ever be. Luciana blinked. Just once. Then laughed, soft and slow. You've taught her well, Alessia. Alessia didn't laugh. No. She taught herself. And then she turned, and we left. The tension snapped behind us, like a gun that never fired. In the car, I exhaled for the first time. Was that a win? I asked. Alessia looked at me. It was a warning. To her? To everyone. She reached over, took my hand. You didn't flinch. I wanted to, but you didn't. No, you're mine now, she said, voice low. Not because of a contract. Not because of your mother. Because you chose it. And now they all know. I squeezed her hand back. I never wanted power, I said. But I want you. Then you'll have to take both. And I knew I would. It didn't take long for the consequences to arrive. The night after the confrontation at Luciana's club, everything changed. Not between Alessia and me. We were solid, more than ever, but around us. The atmosphere. The energy. The silence between phone calls. The way Marco hovered just a little closer than usual. Something was coming. And everyone could feel it. Alessia didn't say it outright, but I saw it in her posture, in the stiffness of her shoulders, in the way her hand never strayed far from the gun beneath her jacket. She was waiting for something. Or someone. The hit came on the third night. Not at the estate. That would have been too bold. Even for Luciana. No. She went for the softer target. The past. I was in the library when the call came in. Alessia answered, listened for 3 seconds, and then her glass shattered against the wall. I froze. She turned to me, eyes dark with something I'd never seen before. Terror. Your mother, she said. They took her. My heart didn't drop. It detonated. Where? Downtown. Warehouse on 19th. No guards. No cameras. No guarantees. Luciana? Of course. Then let's go. Ivy, she's still my mother? Alessia closed her eyes, jaw tight. I know. I was already moving. She followed. No questions. No hesitation. She brought Marco. 2 cars. 5 men. Silence. Strategy. Guns. My mind raced the entire ride there. I hated my mother for what she did. For selling me. For lying. But this wasn't how her story was supposed to end. She was supposed to disappear. Not die in some dark building because of the choices I made. We arrived in under 20 minutes. The warehouse loomed like a forgotten tomb, broken windows, rusted walls, the kind of place where screams didn't echo. Alessia turned to me before we got out of the car. You stay behind me. Not this time. Ivy, you said I was yours. Let me prove I'm worth it. Her eyes searched mine. Then slowly she nodded. We moved together, side by side, weapons drawn. Marco and the others flanked us. The warehouse door was unlocked. Open. An invitation. Inside, shadows dripped from the ceiling like blood. And there, tied to a chair in the center of the room, was my mother.
Alive. Barely. Bruised. Gagged.
Crying. I moved toward her, but Alessia stopped me with one sharp look. It's a trap, she said. And then the lights snapped on. Luciana stepped out of the darkness, slow, theatrical, surrounded by her men. Her smile was venom. Well, the lovers arrive. Alessia raised her gun. End this. Oh, I intend to, Luciana purred. But first, let's make it interesting. One of her men dragged a third chair forward. Empty. Luciana gestured toward it. Sit, Ivy. No, sit, or she dies. She gestured at my mother. Alessia stepped in front of me, gun aimed at Luciana's heart. You touch her, you die. And then what?
Luciana asked.
You kill me, my men open fire. She dies anyway. You lose. This is chess, darling, not checkers. I exhaled, walked forward. Saturday, let's talk then. Luciana circled me. You know, I never expected to hate you. You're young.
Pretty.
Useful. But then you opened your mouth. Then you looked at her like she belonged to you. She does. That's cute. Luciana crouched in front of me. Do you think love means something here? That it changes the rules? No, I said. It rewrites them. Her smile faded. Then die with her. She stood, gun raised. And that's when everything exploded. Not metaphorically. Literally. Marco had planted charges on the outer wall. The blast blew inward, stunning Luciana's men. Alessia moved like lightning. 2 shots, clean, fatal. I ducked as gunfire erupted around me. Chaos. Screams. My mother sobbing. I grab her, cut the ropes with a knife Alessia tossed toward me mid-fight. She covered us, her movements precise, efficient, beautiful, and brutal at once. Luciana tried to flee. Alessia saw her. Followed. I didn't see what happened in that final room, but when Alessia came out, she was alone. Her face unreadable. Luciana was gone. Permanently. We left the warehouse with my mother between us, dazed, crying alive. I didn't speak to her. I couldn't. She didn't apologize. But she didn't have to. I wasn't there for closure. I was there for myself. For Alessia. For the life I was choosing again and again. At the estate, medics took my mother away. She'd be safe. Far from here. Far from this world. I stood in the garden as the sun began to rise. Alessia joined me, her hands blood-stained, her eyes tired. You okay? She asked. I nodded. I've killed for less, she said. But never for more. I turned to her. Is it over? Luciana's dead.
But no.
This won't be over for a long time. Then we fight. Alessia looked at me like I was the only real thing left in the world.
Yes.
We fight. And this time, we wouldn't be fighting alone. The world didn't stop just because Luciana Bellanti was dead. If anything, it spun faster, hotter, more unstable. Alessia's victory wasn't quiet. It was loud, bloody, and impossible to ignore. And power, especially when taken by a woman, didn't settle softly into the hands that earned it. It drew attention, jealousy, challenges. The vultures came circling before Luciana's body was even cold. Allies started asking questions. Enemies got brave. A few of Alessia's men, weak ones, stupid ones, tried to switch sides. She handled it all without blinking. But I could see the toll behind her eyes. She was stronger than ever, and more isolated than I'd ever seen her. Except with me. With me, she unraveled in pieces. At night, when the house was quiet, she let me undress her in silence, let me press kisses against the bruises no one else knew were there. She held me like I was the only thing in the world she hadn't already bled for. And maybe I was. But peace wasn't coming. Not yet. 3 days after the warehouse, Alessia gathered the inner circle.
Marco.
2 of her most trusted lieutenants.
And me.
That was new. Someone is working from inside, she said, standing at the head of the long marble table. They leaked the location of our shipment last week. And they knew where Ivy's mother was. That wasn't Luciana. That was someone close to us. I swallowed hard. You think it's one of your men?
No, she said.
I think it's someone pretending to be one of mine. Her eyes shifted to Marco. Bring in a list. He placed a folder in front of her. Names. Dozens. Employees. Contacts. Everyone who had access to routes, rotations, security codes. Alessia looked at me. We're going to the docks. I want you to see what this world looks like when it rots from the inside. I didn't hesitate. Then let's go. The sun had barely begun to set when we arrived. The docks were quiet, cold, the water black and endless. Alessia moved through the loading area like she owned it, because she did. The workers snapped to attention, eyes lowered, orders obeyed before they were spoken. But she wasn't there to check inventory. She was looking for a lie. And she found one. A man, lean, well-dressed, eyes too slick. He smiled too fast when he saw her, called her boss like it tasted foreign on his tongue. Alessia stepped close to him, too close. Who gave you access to the manifests on Thursday? She asked. He faltered. I was told by Marco. Marco doesn't deal with manifests. I meant Nicolo. Nicolo's dead. She said it flatly, calmly. My blood ran cold. Alessia tilted her head. Try again. He blinked. Sweat gathered at his temples. I don't know. Lies, she said. Then she turned to me.
Ivy.
Come here. I walked toward them slowly, heartbeat thudding. What do you see when you look at him? She asked. I stared at the man. He couldn't meet my eyes.
Fear, I said.
Desperation.
Guilt.
Exactly. Alessia stepped back. What would you do? I looked at her. At him. I didn't want blood. I didn't want to kill. But I understood now. This world didn't survive on kindness. It survived on clarity. I stepped forward, took the gun from Alessia's outstretched hand, and aimed it. Not at his head. At his foot. I pulled the trigger. The sound echoed. He screamed.
Collapsed.
Everyone froze. Alessia didn't move. I turned to her. Now he'll talk. Her eyes burned with something between approval and hunger. Yes, she said. He will. And he did. He spilled everything. Names. Messages. Deals. He was working for one of Luciana's silent backers, someone who hadn't been in the room when the last war ended, but wanted to start another. We had a name. We had leverage. And I had blood on my hands. Later that night, back at the estate, I sat on the edge of the bed, still shaking. The weight of the gun. The sound of the scream. The look in his eyes. Alessia came in, wordless, and sat beside me. You did what I would have done, she said. I'm not sure that's a good thing, I whispered. It is, she said. You didn't flinch. I wanted to. But you didn't. I turned to her. Is that who I am now? No, she said, voice softer. It's who you had to be.
For me.
For us. And what if I hate that version of me? She looked at me, eyes full of something I wasn't ready for. Then I'll love her enough for both of us. That broke me. I leaned into her. Let her hold me. Let her kiss the worst parts of me. And I knew, without question, that I wasn't leaving this life. Not because of the violence. Not because of the power. But because of her. I wasn't the girl who'd been traded for a debt anymore. I was the woman who'd chosen war to stay by the side of the most dangerous, most loyal love I'd ever known. The name the traitor gave us changed everything. Emilio Serrano. A ghost. A man who once operated in the shadows beside Luciana, then vanished when Alessia rose to power. Everyone assumed he'd fled the country, gone underground, or been killed in the purge that followed Alessia's ascension. They were wrong. He'd been waiting, watching, building. And now, with Luciana dead and the network rattled, he was ready to take her place. Alessia didn't panic.
She planned.
She shifted resources, reached out to allies, tightened security. But I could feel it. This wasn't like before. This wasn't a test or a political move. This was the final hand. The enemy was no longer subtle. He was coming. And Alessia, for the first time, had something to lose.
Me.
She tried to hide it, but I saw the cracks. The restless pacing. The clenched jaw. The way her fingers hovered just a little longer over mine when she thought I was asleep. The way she kissed me like it might be the last time. "You're not leaving my side," she said one morning, voice low, final. "From now until this ends, you don't leave the estate without me." "Because you're afraid?" "Because I'm human," she said. "And I already lost too much to let him take you." We trained harder. Longer. I followed Marco into the shooting range, into surveillance drills, into close combat techniques I never thought I'd learn. And slowly, I stopped shaking. I stopped hesitating. The girl who flinched under Alessia's gaze was gone. And in her place was someone who moved like she belonged to this world. Alessia noticed. One night, after a silent dinner filled with tension and stares and 1,000 unspoken truths, she pulled me into her office and locked the door. "This might be the last calm night we get," she said. I looked at her, heart pounding. "Then let's make it count." We didn't speak for a long time after that. Just hands. Just mouths. Just heat and desperate devotion written across bare skin and whispered into the dark. She kissed me like a promise. I kissed her like I believed her. And when we finally collapsed, breathless, tangled in sheets and each other, she pulled me close and said the words I never thought I'd hear from someone like her. "If I don't come back, don't," I said, cutting her off. "Then fight like hell to make sure I do." "I will. Swear it." "On everything," I said, voice shaking. "I swear it." The call came before dawn. Emilio had surfaced. A private property on the outskirts of the city, abandoned warehouse, fortified from the outside, crawling with armed men. It was obvious bait. It didn't matter. "This ends now," Alessia said as we geared up. Black again. Guns again. Fear again. But this time, I wasn't in the shadows. I stood beside her.
Armed.
Ready. I was no longer the debt. I was the weapon. Marco drove. The others followed. Alessia, and I didn't speak. We didn't need to. Her hand found mine once in the back seat. She didn't let go. The warehouse loomed like a final chapter. There was no subtlety. No hesitation. The second we stepped out of the car, bullets started flying. We moved as one.
Trained. Deadly.
Alessia led the charge. I covered her. We cleared the first floor in minutes, bodies dropping, commands shouted, footsteps pounding against concrete. I didn't freeze. I didn't falter. I remembered her voice in my head. "If you're going to shoot, mean it." I meant it. We reached the upper level where Emilio waited, surrounded by his last loyal men. His eyes landed on Alessia first, then on me. He smirked. "So it's true. You softened." Alessia raised her gun.
No.
I evolved. "You brought your toy to a war." "She's not my toy," Alessia said, voice like steel. "She's my edge." And then all hell broke loose. I didn't see who fired first. Just noise.
Blood.
Movement. I ducked behind a crate, took down one of his men, then another. Alessia moved through them like death incarnate. And then it happened. Emilio aimed at her.
Fast.
Precise. I didn't think. I moved. Stepped in front of her. Pulled the trigger. My bullet hit first. Emilio dropped. Silence fell. And then pain. Not mine. Alessia's. She collapsed beside me. My scream split the air. "No, no, no, no." I dropped beside her, hands covered in her blood. She was still breathing.
Barely.
"Don't close your eyes," I said, shaking. "Don't you fucking dare." You stepped in front of me, she whispered. You would have done the same. I told you not to leave my side.
I never did, I said.
I never will. The medics arrived seconds later.
Marco was shouting.
Everything was chaos. But I never let go of her hand. Not when they loaded her into the car. Not when they told me it was critical. Not when they said they didn't know if she'd make it through the night. I sat by her hospital bed for hours.
Days.
I didn't move. I barely breathed. I just waited. I wasn't leaving her.
Not now.
Not ever. The first 12 hours were the worst. Alessia's blood had dried on my hands by the time the doctors pulled her into surgery, and still I couldn't move. I sat in the hospital corridor, back against the cold wall, unable to cry, unable to think, just waiting. Marco stayed nearby, quiet and watchful. He offered coffee at some point. I didn't touch it. The others came and went, her lieutenants, guards, associates, all trying not to look like they were panicking. Because if Alessia Romano died, the entire structure she'd built would fall. But I wasn't afraid of power shifting. I was afraid of the silence she'd leave behind. The absence of her voice. Her hands. Her anger. Her love. I'd only just gotten it. I wasn't ready to lose it. When the surgeon finally emerged, blood still on his scrubs, his expression was grim but not broken. She made it through surgery, he said. She's stable. But it'll be days before we know more. I didn't wait for anyone else to ask. I pushed past him, followed the nurse, and stepped into the room. She looked smaller in the bed.
Still. Pale.
Tubes everywhere. But she was breathing. My Alessia. I sat beside her and took her hand. Her fingers were limp, but warm. You're not allowed to leave me, I whispered. Not after everything. Not after I chose you. I didn't sleep. I barely blinked. Nurses came and went, checked monitors, adjusted IVs. I didn't move. I just watched her. Every breath. Every twitch. Every sign that she was still here. On the second night, her fingers curled around mine. It was faint.
Weak.
But real. I looked up and her eyes fluttered open. Dark and tired.
But there.
Ivy, she rasped. I leaned forward, tears finally slipping free. You're awake. You're here. You jumped in front of me, she said. So did you. Before I ever knew who you were. Her lips twitched. Almost a smile. You saved me. I'd do it again. Her hand tightened in mine. You're not Collateral anymore. No, I said. I'm your partner. Days passed. Her strength returned slowly. She couldn't walk at first. Couldn't speak for more than a few minutes without pain. But I was always there, reading to her, helping her eat, lying beside her in the narrow bed when the nightmares hit. The estate held itself together without her, barely. Marco stepped up. The network quieted. And when word got out that Emilio Serrano was dead, the silence became loyalty. No one dared challenge Alessia now. Not when they realized who had taken him down. Not when they saw me by her side. They stopped seeing me as a girl dragged into her world. They started seeing me as the woman who belonged there. The day she came home was quiet. No fanfare. No theatrics. Just her, leaning on me as we walked through the front door of the mansion that once felt like a prison. Now it felt like ours. She stood in the foyer, looking around like she was seeing it for the first time. I almost died here, she said. You didn't. Because of you. Because of us. Alessia looked at me then. Really looked. I never believed I could have this. Someone like you. You didn't take me, I said. You found me when no one else did. She reached up, touched my cheek. I fell in love with you the moment you stood your ground. And I fell in love with you the moment you let your guard down. We didn't say more. We didn't need to. That night, we slept together for the first time in weeks, skin to skin, no walls between us. She didn't rush. Neither did I. Every kiss was a thank you. Every breath was a vow. And when we finally collapsed in each other's arms, tangled and breathless, she whispered into my neck, "Stay with me." Always, I whispered back. Time passed. The estate healed. So did we. Alessia never stopped being the boss. But now, people came to her differently. They glanced at me when they entered the room. Not in fear, in respect. Because I wasn't her weakness. I was her balance. Her storm when she needed thunder. Her stillness when she needed peace. One afternoon, weeks later, we stood in the garden where it all began. She reached into her coat and pulled out a small velvet box. My breath caught. Alessia, no contracts this time. No debts. Just this. She opened it. Inside, a thin band of gold. Simple. Elegant.
Real.
Be mine, she said. On paper. In blood. In life. I took the ring, slid it onto her finger first, then held out my hand. You're late, I whispered. I've been yours since the first time you walked into my kitchen. She laughed.
It was soft.
Vulnerable. Beautiful. Then let's stop pretending we're anything else. We kissed. No audience. No enemies. Just us. Two women who met in fire. And stayed through everything after. I wasn't a prisoner. I wasn't a soldier. I wasn't a survivor. I was hers. And she was mine. In every way that mattered. If you enjoyed this content and want to support the channel in a special way, try clicking the thanks button below. It's the one with the heart and $sign icon. With super thanks, you can make a direct contribution to the channel, which helps me keep creating awesome videos for you.